a lot of the behaviors that they participate in are directly tied to their religion as well as their ethnicity. This is a group of people that call themselves the chosen people. Now, if you don't believe me on this, look at how they treat the Gazans. The only way that you can systematically bomb a group of people in a small geographic area for 2 years and not give a about it as the international community condemns you is if you have a almost sickening level of narcissism and self-righteousness, as if you could do no wrong. All right, let's cover Tucker Carlson. So guys, breaking news. This happened a few hours ago. Shout out to Official Hads with the gifted. Thank you so much. Tucker Carlson says he was stopped at question at Tel Aviv airport after interviewing U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee. He claims Israeli officials take his producer aside and demanded, thank you, Fuego Wolf with the gifted, and demanded to know what they discussed. Carlson says he only visited the country for a few hours and is now back out. He says the experience was bizarre and left him shaken. Not a good look for his. So for those of you that aren't familiar, let me bring you guys up to speed real quick. Tucker Carlson over the past year or so has been extremely critical of the state of Israel for, very good reasons. They're killing Christians, what they're doing in Gaza, starting wars, etc. His outspokenness against Israel has been noticed by the community. You got people like Mark Levin and a bunch of others going at him every day on Twitter. They're pissed off. They're super triggered. They're trying to get him canceled. They're calling him like the anti-Semite of the week every other day. So he's gotten quite a bit of heat. And then I would say a lot of this came to a head when he brought Nick Fuentes on his show. When he brought Nick Fuentes on his podcast, that a lot of people off because now, Nick was a part of the conversation and they can't, they can't stop him, right? Because it used to be for a very long time in the right-wing media, which is run by, by the way, if you were persona non grata, they basically it was a clique, right? If you weren't like a supporter of, if you you're not going to get invited to Turning Point. You're not going to be able to get podcasts. You're not going to get invited to certain situations. So it's like a real career stifler, right? So by Tucker Carlson going outside of the conservative normie circle and being willing to talk about the genocide in Gaza, being willing to talk about the death and destruction of people in Gaza, both Muslim and Christian, that put a huge target on his back because right-wing media is controlled. Whether it's Blaze, Daily Wire, PragerU, all run by Fox. Okay, so after he got fired from Fox, similar with Candace Owens, he had a meteoric rise. And during his meteoric rise, he started talking about these taboo subjects, as well did Candace. And obviously, this has put them both in the crosshairs of the powerful lobby in America. Okay, and we saw with Carrie, the Carrie that I told you guys about that literally just got kicked off the religious board. They have a lot of power and a lot of control. And if you don't see the world through their lens, you're going to get canceled. You're going to get kicked out. You're not going to get invited. You're going to lose certain career opportunities. And that's what basically happened in this situation. So Tucker went to interview Mike Huckabee, aka Mike. I call him Mike Huckabee because he's by the. But he went over there to go talk to him. But here's the thing. Tucker is smart. He didn't leave the airport. Okay, he didn't leave the airport. He just went, landed, stayed in the Ben Gurion airport, and waited for Huckabee to show up. Who was the ambassador? They did an interview, and then I guess as he was trying to leave, they detained him. So that's kind of the backstory on Tucker and his, red pill awakening on this topic. But the right wing guys is still very brainwashed when it comes to Zionism. The left wing is more progressive on this than us, for lack of a better term. But they attack it from another angle. Let's go ahead and look at this video from Benny Johnson on it.
And its government. Plenty to criticize, obviously, but he really went there in a speech last.
And Max Mar, shout out to you for the gifted sub. Appreciate you, my friend.
Summer.
We're almost at 1,000 subs, by the way, guys. If we get to hit 1,000 by the end of the show, that'd be awesome.
Turning Point USA, where Charlie Kirk was encouraging him, in fact, to hit as hard as he possibly can against Jeffrey Epstein. And he said this about Epstein and his ties to Israeli.
Acceptable. And I think the real answer.
Okay, I was there in Tampa when he gave this speech. Bro, the lobby was furious. They were furious. I remember this. This was back in July of this past year. Charlie was still alive. And dude, donors pulled out. People got angry. They said never have Tucker on again. This infuriated so many people that are pro on the right. Zav Trades and Ismir03, shout out to you guys. Thank you.
Answer is Jeffrey Epstein was working on behalf of intel services, probably not American. And we have every right to ask, on whose behalf was he working? How does a guy go from being a math teacher at the Dalton School in the late 70s with no college degree to having multiple airplanes, a private island, and the largest resident?
Facts. We know how he got it. Les Wexner, who's a powerful billionaire Zionist Jew that backed him, which, by the way, I'm going to be talking more about Epstein with our guy Ian Carroll tomorrow, by the way, guys. I love feminine with the gifted. Thank you so much. I'm going to be on with Ian Carroll tomorrow night, guys, talking about Epstein. So that's going to be a banger as well. Make sure to set your calendars for that one. We're going to take over Kick, chat. That is my goal. We are going to take over Kick. We're going to become the #1 political channel on Kick. That is the goal. It's Miro3. Thank you so much for the gifted. Okay. So we're taking over this platform.
Central House in
The OSS Army is about to run wild all over this.
Manhattan. Where did all the money come from? And no one has ever gotten to the bottom of that because no one has ever tried. And moreover, it's extremely obvious to anyone who watches that this guy had direct connections to a foreign government. Now, no one's allowed to say that that foreign government is Israel because we have been somehow cowed into thinking
He got a lot of cheers, though, but all the donors were
that that's naughty. There is nothing wrong with saying that. There is nothing hateful about saying that. There's nothing anti-Semitic about saying that. There's nothing even anti-Israel about saying that. I've spent my entire life pretty much in Washington, where I knew and loved a number of people, including one very close person who worked at CIA. That has never prohibited me from saying, I think the CIA has done some horrible things, murdered a bunch of people, participated in the murder of a sitting U.S. president. It's got a whole trail of crimes. That doesn't make me a disloyal American. It doesn't make me anti-American in any sense. I was born.
So Tucker Carlson obviously continuing to say that Israel commits crimes on American soil, that Jeffrey Epstein committed crimes on behalf of Israel on American soil. And this is just one of the many times that Tucker Carlson has gone in, of course, extremely hard on the question. This is shocking behavior for
Well, it's not really the question. It's the question, right? Look, I know Candace and Tucker don't like saying they might call them Frankists or Zionists or whatever, but we must be honest here and understand that this isn't like a Zionist thing. It's a thing, okay? We just have to have a very candid conversation on this topic, okay? Does this mean that every single involved? No. But I do think that's extremely important and notable to understand that a lot of the behaviors that they participate in or engage in are directly tied to their religion as well as their ethnicity. This is a group of people that call themselves the chosen people, God's chosen people, okay? Now, if you don't believe me on this, look at how they treat their enemies. Look at how they treat the Gazans, okay? The only way that you can systematically bomb a group of people in a small geographic area for 2 years, right? The only way you can do that and not give a about it as the international community condemns you is if you have a almost sickening level of narcissism and self-righteousness, as if you could do no wrong. Okay, so we have to be honest here and have a very difficult conversation. That I'm not saying every single Jew is a selfish individual who thinks that he's God's chosen individual. No, but I do think that their behaviors are directly attributed to not just their religion but also to their ethnicity. Because you guys must understand that they're in a unique class where they're a group of people that are an ethnicity while simultaneously also having a religion. So in other words, you can find a Christian Jew. Look at Seth Dillon. You can find a Muslim. You can find an atheist. Or you can find a Jew that's also practicing Judaism. But it's very important to understand that they're a people first. And whether they're religious or not, a lot of them still have this mentality of we are God's chosen. When you have the mentality of we are God's chosen, that means our lives matter more than yours. And this is how you guys are able to see them bombing the out of an area, starving the people, cutting off their water, cutting off their electricity, and have no remorse.
United States ambassador, says Tucker Carlson, about Mike Huckabee. Now, this is Mike Huckabee, and I think this is absolutely and totally repulsive behavior, by the way. Like, I'm still waiting for an explanation here. U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee welcomed convicted U.S. spy Jonathan Pollard into the U.S. Embassy in July. This should have gotten Mike Huckabee removed from his position, period. And it's like not something from my perspective that like I'm going to say with any animus, right, towards the Huckabee family. Just on
Mike Huckabee is a and to be honest, it's embarrassing that they would detain Tucker Carlson right after he just finished talking to a U.S. ambassador. Are you serious, dude? That is embarrassing.
Principle. This is something that you have to remove an ambassador for. Jonathan Pollard is one of the worst spies in U.S. history. He should never be welcomed to a U.S. embassy.
Oh, not only was he bro, that got a red carpet treatment. You guys want to see how they treated this? Look at this, bro. Look at this. Here's what happens when you're a Jewish spy. Okay, this is what happens when you're a Jewish spy, guys. You get met at the tarmac with the Prime Minister of Israel.
Denied.
Yo, what? On a private jet. Bro came on a private jet owned by the Adelsons after being convicted of espionage, selling our secrets to the Russians, bro.
That was easy.
Tell me there ain't no double standard. It's the ground. And it's important that you guys understand, right, that this is the issue when you have dual allegiance people, dual allegiance citizens. This guy had a clearance. He betrayed his country, sold our secrets to the Russians in exchange for Russians moving to be protected. Shout out to repeal the 19th. That's why so many of these Zionists are first chat. They can't have positions of power like this. We got to get them out of our politics. We got to get them out of positions of power. We got to take away their clearances. Look, you want to be a dual citizen? You want to serve it too? Fine. But you should not have access to classified information. The Israelis are notorious for stealing our information. These get caught doing it all the time. And he gets a hero's welcome in Tel Aviv by the Prime Minister of Israel. One of the worst spies ever. One of the worst spies ever, bro.
He should be in prison. He should have been in prison a lot longer.
Bro went there on a private jet owned by Sheldon Adelson and Miriam Adelson. For those of you that don't know who the Adelsons are.
Every single time, every single crime, every single lie, early lie, every single hour, every single day, every single night, early lie. I know it's hard to believe it's the whole forest, not one tree, and it's every branch and leaf. They're born to deceive, but I'm telling you the truth. It's not just one or two, it's every single Jew. They all.
So these are the two biggest donors to the Republican Party. Sheldon, he's dead now, but he's a casino tycoon. And here's his wife, right? She's still alive. She gave Trump like $100 million in his 2024 campaign. Gave biggest donors in the GOP. This is their jet that this guy, Jonathan Pollard, is coming in on.
Every single time, every single crime, every single lie, early lie, every single hour, every single day.
And you guys can see here, American-born Israeli former intelligence analyst who was jailed for spying for Israel back in the 80s.
Longer than he actually was. He was bailed out by the state of Israel, given a hero's welcome by the state of Israel. It's totally sickening. Anyway, Tucker Carlson says, shocking behavior from a U.S. ambassador. Is Huckabee going to explain this, welcoming one of the worst U.S. spies in history who spied on behalf of Israel on America? Okay. Well, Mike Huckabee said, Tucker Carlson, instead of talking about me, why don't you come and talk to me? Why don't you, you seem to be generating a lot of heat about the Middle East. Why are you afraid of the light? So Mike Huckabee invites Tucker Carlson to, and then Tucker says, thanks for this. I'd love to. We'll reach out to your office today and set up an interview. Tucker Carlson announced today he's in Israel. So there you go. Tucker Carlson in Israel.
But he didn't leave the airport. Yo, I'm not going to lie. When I heard that he went to Israel, I was a little scared, man.
Greetings.
But I ain't gonna lie, I got scared, yo. I thought Tucker was going to go kiss the wall. But bro did not leave the airport. Bro did not leave the airport. But when he said he was going to Israel, I was terrified, man. I thought he was going to put the little hat on, beg for forgiveness, and kiss the wall, but he didn't.
From it, and you can see the Israeli flags, and you see they're at some type of what looks like a diplomatic, perhaps, location. Well, then, ladies and gentlemen, something crazy hit the wire, which is that Tucker Carlson was detained in.
And the interesting part is they detained him after he did the interview, which is really, by the way, like what the, like I would tell him, all right, bro, it's gonna be up 24 hours. Go tune in when I drop it on YouTube.
The journalist was dragged into an interrogation room, and his entire staff was halted from entering the nation. Oh boy. Okay. Well, here we go. Now we're cooking.
And now, for those of you that don't know, is a police state. Okay, they have some of the strictest security of any country, bro. Like if you go in there and they find anything derogatory on you, right? You're critical of it or any of that shit, bro. They're gonna keep you at the airport for hours. They're gonna go through your phone. They're gonna go through all your stuff. They do not f around. It is literally a police state. It is the definition of a police state because they're under constant threat because nobody wants them there in the region. To be honest with you,
conservative podcast.
You know, I mean, you know, if you steal people's land. Them and like, you know, people aren't going to want you around, be honest.
Titan, Tucker Carlson, said he and his staff were detained in Wednesday following the interview with Donald Trump's ambassador to the country. So this is going to be a big interview. It's going to be an interview, obviously, of Mike Huckabee for the aforementioned reasons. But this is new. The former Fox
I hope he embarrassed him like he did with Ted Cruz.
News host flew to Tel Aviv for a sit-down interview with Mike Huckabee, who challenged Carlson to speak with him directly in an online spat, the country's treatment of Christians. Carlson, who frequently criticizes for its military actions in Gaza, took Huckabee up on the offer. Critics of the pro after this began piling on Carlson for purportedly not leaving the airport during the visit. He revealed that he was met with hostility in the Middle Eastern country. Carlson exclusively told the Daily Mail that shortly after the interview, Israeli officials confiscated his passport, hauled him and his colleagues into interrogation rooms privately. Men who were identified themselves at the airport took our passports, this is Tucker Carlson speaking, hauled our executive producer into a side room and then demanded to know what we spoke to Mike Huckabee about, Carlson told the Daily Mail. Whoa. So this is an American citizen speaking with an American ambassador in a foreign country, and that foreign country is then harassing the journalist? That's insane. It was bizarre. We are now out of the country, says Tucker. Prior to the interview, Carlson posted a photo.
And it's weird, not only that, but like that they did this to him after the interview, because presumably they admitted him into the country. He just chose not to leave the airport. They did the interview and then they detained him after. Very weird.
Of himself and his business partner at the Ben Gurion airport with the captions, "Greetings from." I just showed you that photo. This is a really big scandal. Too bad Tucker stayed at the airport to face so many investigations, to see so many wonderful places, a huge obvious intention, missed opportunity, said David Friedman, the former ambassador, saying Tucker should have gone into the country, right? Gotten assassinated. Two sources familiar with the matter, however, told the Daily Mail that the Israeli government initially did not want to allow Tucker Carlson into the country, prompting a delicate negotiation involved.
Yeah, of course they didn't want to let him into the country. Bros were mad that he was being critical of it. I'm actually shocked he went there. Like, I guess he really wanted this interview with Mike Huckabee for some reason. I don't know if like what his goal was during the interview was to like grill him or something, but I'm not surprised.
Involving the State Department. Goodness gracious. They didn't even want him there to interview the American ambassador. So an American can't go interview an American ambassador. In the end, the Israeli government decided to not bar Carlson from entering the country in order to avoid a diplomatic incident. A spokesperson for the U.S. Embassy in Israel denied that Carlson was detained, claimed he received the same passport control questions that countless visitors to, including Ambassador Huckabee and diplomats,
1 second.
as part of their normal entrance and exit from Israel. It is not accurate that Israel was going to let Tucker Carlson into the country for the interview, the representative added. The only engagement at the embassy had to do with on the visit to coordinate his private plane landing as part of the facilitating seamless visit. It was Tucker who chose to only come to the country for a few hours and then depart. Tucker received the same positive treatment of any visitors to the Daily Mail contacted the White House and Netanyahu's office. Obviously, Carlson's been a critic of and has been advocating for the proper treatment of Christians inside of it. So here we go. Tucker Carlson detained in massive trending topic around the globe.
Yeah, I think they released him though. They probably asked us some questions and released him. I think that was also like a show of force from their side. They want to assert dominance, like, oh, hey, you come to my country, we'll go to, you know what I mean?
American citizen journalist Tucker Carlson detained for interviewing a U.S. ambassador. We won't tolerate this. You just made it worse. Here we go. So here's both sides. MTG versus Laura Loomer.
Detaining an American citizen, the biggest, I would say Tucker right now is probably the biggest right-wing political commentator on the in America. Like, detaining him was a very bad move by the Israeli government. Really to do that.
You wonder if intelligence has something on Tucker Carlson being a foreign agent. Do they have evidence that he works for Qatar or Iran? So here we go. Community notes remain undefeated. Carlson was only in the country for a transit capacity for a few hours to conduct an interview with Huckabee. He never left the airport. He refused an invitation to visit the Christian community in Tucker Carlson detained at the
I don't blame him, bro. Dude, after all the shit he said, I wouldn't go either. Just so you guys know, the Mossad has the most confirmed assassinations of any intelligence agency in the world. They're number one, okay? They're number one. This is what they do, okay? They kill more civilians than actual military individuals, because what the Mossad really focus on is killing Iranian scientists. That's like their number one target list of people that they go after. Iranian scientists. So, bro, these guys do not f around, man.
Airport. Okay. The U.S. Embassy says Carlson was not detained or mistreated in Israel. He was routine passport control question at Ben Gurion. Tucker claims he was dragged into an interrogation room. When I was in college doing political activism and college Republicans, I was invited to Israel. I went to Israel and they had heavy passport controls. I wasn't dragged in any interrogation room, but I mean, I think Tucker would know the difference between normal passport controls and like being dragged into an interrogation room.
No, they definitely put him in a room. It's like the equivalent to like when you come to America, they put you in what's called secondary. When CBP gives you like that little slip and tells you to go to the room, same exact they did with him, basically.
Carlson has a private.
Oh, look, of course, Mark Levin has something to say. I call Mark Levin the top J, by the way. Bro really is the top J. He is the top J, Mark Levin. Me and him went back and forth on Twitter as well. I be cooking that nigga, man. I ain't gonna lie. I be cooking Mark Levin on Twitter. I ratio him every time.
Jet? Did Jeffrey Epstein have a private jet? I see the connection here, just asking questions. So you see where this is devolving into, okay? So anyway, this is, I guess we'll find out soon, right? Tucker Carlson is not suicidal. He won't leave the airport in Israel. It would be easier to leave the airport and come to the country ran by trustworthy people. Streets were filled with trustworthy people. Sadly, this is not the case. Okay. What on earth?
Yep. Not surprised.